Hey guys, welcome to Arora Art Studios. My name is Tony and today I'm going to be drawing Luffy Gear 2nd. Now, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I'll be uploading a video every Monday. Now, in saying that, this video is about 2 days late, but I figured that if it was already going to be late, then I may as well just make it high quality. So originally I wasn't going to do this commentary and adding these tips, but like I said, yeah, I want to make sure that all my videos are of high standard. Now, the reason I was so late was because in Australia we had a long weekend and it was very busy for me. And now you guys also have to realize that I still do work during the week, just like you, I'm sure. And eventually I want to become full-time in doing this. So until then, it's still going to be hard sometimes creating videos on time, but I'll definitely do my best to give you guys the best quality videos I can with the time I have during the week. Now, let's talk about the drawing. So as you can see, I have Luffy in his iconic Gear 2nd stance, but I've changed it up a little bit and changed the perspective of it. So instead of having it front on, I've kind of done it from a side on perspective, almost like you're below him as well. It's a really cool perspective. I actually figured out how to do it through some reference of another artwork. This is almost similar to that artwork, but I've added my own kind of vibe to it and my own artistic style to it. I've changed a lot of things in that artwork, even difference with my artwork here. So I've also decided to give Luffy a bit of fire with his haki on his right arm, so insinuating his red hawk attack, which is so cool in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of you guys think it's awesome too. So you'll see how it turns out later throughout the video, but I do want to mention that next week's video will be Katakuri, which is my favorite One Piece character of all time at this point, right? So I'm really pumped to draw him next week. But anyway, let's get back into Luffy. As you can see, with the perspective, it became very difficult at one point to make sure it looked correct, because that's a very important point when trying to draw something that's not in typical perspective, like a front-on, a one-dimensional perspective. This is kind of a two-dimensional perspective. This right leg at the front here, or it's his left leg, but to us it's the leg on the right. That took me not as long as the leg over there in the back, the one on the left side, further left side of the screen, because it was closer, and it's easier drawing something closer than further away, especially when you're trying to add an extreme perspective on it, just like I am here. Now, a good tip to help you out with that is, once again, to use reference, like I have said many times. Now, another great idea is to use a perspective grid line. So what that is you add a horizontal and vertical axis, and then what you do is you draw lines further in between. Now, I didn't show you that in here because that was what I did at the start of the drawing. It took me a real good while to get this drawing going, and so that's why I cut it out. But what I want to do is, from now on, I think I'm going to show you guys my entire drawing process from start to finish, just so you guys understand exactly how I draw my entire drawing and my process, right? Because earlier on I did do a Broly drawing. It's the first video I ever did, and that one I did show you guys my entire process, but I felt like in some drawings just like this one, I did find it difficult to edit out so many little cuts, because I was never sure of exactly how I wanted to portray Luffy in this perspective. A few other things as well when it comes to that is that I do want to save time, because some of my videos can get a bit lengthy. You know, editing, can only go so far when I'm trying to feed in as much information in the video as possible. But usually I'm okay with it. But yeah, at this point, that's why I've been kind of cutting out the start of my drawings. But yep, so what I'll do is I'll definitely start them up again. Now, I'll also leave a poll up at the top corner of the video, just in case you guys want me to stick to what I'm doing right now, or whether you do want me to add my entire process into the videos. Now, as you can see, what I've done is I've added a lot of steam around Luffy, as the typical Gear 2nd kind of esque look, where there's pink steam coming off, which we will see later on. It'll be a lot more pink. Now, in the front part here, where his arm is doing the red hawk, the flame on his haki, I have a lot of dust, as if it's like turning on. So it's a really cool idea from me. I definitely think so. Now, a thing that was difficult for me with the dust was I'm really not good at it, right? Definitely something I need to improve on. So what I can do in the future is probably spam a lot of other artworks that have dust in it, just so I can kind of get used to the idea of how to kind of do it, right? Because in the One Piece anime, it's a little bit different where sometimes they added some guidelines to it and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't need to really. A lot of Luffy's steam when drawn in like Gear 4 or Gear 2nd, yeah, there's not many really guidelines around the steam, so it was a bit touch and go. But sometimes when they have dust, they do have a bit of guidelines, so you know, it all kind of depends on the scene and what they decide to do in the anime. Yeah, it's definitely something I need to work on in the future. So yeah, but if you guys have any tips for me, please comment down in the comment section below and tell me how you think I can improve it. But you'll see later on in the drawing where I do struggle a bit, but I think it did turn out okay towards the end, so it's not too much of a struggle. Now, another handy tip for you guys is when I'm talking about in like previous videos, and especially in my how to improve your art in 5 tips videos. If you haven't seen that, I'd definitely give that a watch if you want to improve your art. I will leave it in the description down below. But something I do say is to create a focal point of your artwork, and I haven't just said that in that, I've said it in a few videos. And the way I do that is to brighten up one area and darken up the rest of the artwork, right? So what you'll see is soon I'll add a kind of a bright area near his right arm or his left arm for us, so it really pops out and sticks out and draws most of our eyes' attention to that area. And what I do is I darken out the outer skirts of the artwork so it kind of encloses into the area. Now, I've also done that by lighting up certain aspects of Luffy's body, right, making it seem like it's a really intense light, and so when the light is reflecting so much, it makes it even more intense and keeps drawing your eye to that singular point of the artwork. Now, I did want to make Luffy's face originally. I wanted to make Luffy's face an area for everyone's eyes to focus on, but it was a bit difficult because there was 2 ways I was going to go about it. I was either going to create a focal point where his red hawk is activated, or around his face. Now, the only way to do it with his face was to get the light source coming from behind him instead of in front of him. Now, that proved to be very difficult only because what happened is if the light source is coming from behind him, it leaves the majority of his body very dark and not very detailed. And so I didn't like that, and also how I was supposed to get the light perspective going to his head was also something I'm not comfortable with and haven't done too often in the past, so something definitely to improve on in the future. But for now, I just focused on what I thought would look best as of right now and my capabilities, and I didn't want to push it too far considering I didn't have so much time to complete the artwork due to the long weekend in Australia. But what I've also changed up now, and as you've seen, is I've added like a shading style into the hardened shaded area. So usually what I would do, as you saw originally, I would do like a solid shading line, like for example on the right leg here, and then what I did was I added a shading around the outside, so it made it seem like the red hawk in the middle was even brighter than it seems to show as of right now. It's funny, it's really important how shading influences how bright an area of an artwork is. So that's definitely another tip to keep in mind. You make sure that your shading corresponds to the amount of light reflecting off the focal point of your drawing. Now, something else that you may have noticed is on the right leg here, what I did was I also cut out a bit of the shading. Now, some of you may not understand why, but if you know how light works and how it reflects, then you'll understand this. And you'll see in a lot of other artworks where it's always the case that the light always seems to just glimpse the end of even a shaded area. That's because of how light reacts and how it works. I also did have some trouble here, so when I added a lot of lighting because of how I wanted intense the Red Hawk to look, I did have trouble because his torso area that was just pretty much like very bright and not as detailed made it kind of annoying in my mind, because I like when things are very detailed, and so you know when something's detailed you have lighting and shading, but because there's so much light coming from his right or his left arm for us, it's hard to add so much shading to an area like that. You know, I still think it came out very well, so it's not too much to complain. The fabric for his pants and for his shirt wasn't too difficult to shade. I just needed to make it not as solid when it came to the lighting, because when it's solid it kind of comes across as like a leather. Now the pants, I did keep it like that because that's kind of how I wanted to represent it, but as you can see with his shirt, it does kind of fade out and it's not as bright, so it does keep the illusion that it's a form of fabric. As you can see, I am drawing the burnt ground underneath it, which I thought was a really cool idea, and I'm really glad I came across it when I was thinking about the entire process of this, and I do think it came out really well. It really shows the intensity of how hot his hand is, right? And that's a really great tip to add to when you're drawing something. Something so small like that adds a whole different level of intensity to how I would see his arm. If that was just like normal ground, right, what would happen is I would just assume that his arm isn't that hot, or not something that would even take into consideration regardless whether his hand's on fire or not. When the ground itself is scorched, it gives me the illusion that his hand is actually, or his arm is way too hot for anyone to handle. And it's a great little detail to add to any form of drawing, regardless of what you're doing, just adding a detail to something small like that. Alright, now let's see how the drawing turned out. Alright, there you have it, guys. So as you can see, I did add a few extra bits to it. There was a lot of editing after I finished recording, and I didn't think it was going to take that long, but it did. As you can see, the dust is something that I did improve on, thank God, from the earlier stages of the drawing. But it's still something that needs work on. I increased the contrast and the saturation of the artwork only by a little bit, just to give it a bit more of a pop. So I'm glad that it's something that worked, because usually when I do that, it does get a bit like saturated and strong. Not something that I'm happy with on a usual basis. So that's the video, guys. If you like the video, give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Like I said, I'll be doing a video every Monday just like this. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of the artwork as well, and where you think I can improve, and if you guys have any tips for me to improve my commentary, or whether you guys have any tips for me to improve my artwork, please do not hesitate to give me advice. That is the best thing I could ask for. Alright? Okay guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya!